The Supreme Court of the United States strikes another blow to the separation of church and state. In a new ruling, the theocrats on the court turned one of the nation's fundamental principles on its head. This is from Elie Mystal, who I recommend following. I plan on reading his latest book at some point. I do not know what most people think separation of church and state means, but I can tell you that the 6 conservative justices on the Supreme Court think it means nothing. There is no meaningful check anymore on whether conservatives will allow religious concerns to supersede secular laws. Can businesses run by religious people deny health care to a woman? Yes, according to Burwell v. Hobby Lobby Stores. Can really schools use public funds to upgrade their school playgrounds? Yes, according to Trinity Lutheran versus Comer. Can the state be forced to give scholarship aid to students attending religious education? Yes, according to Espinoza v. Montana Department of Revenue. Can religious organizations or institutions get state funds to discriminate against LGBTQ people in adoption services? Of course! Can houses of worship ignore occupancy restrictions during a pandemic? Of course! Now the Supreme Court has ruled that taxpayer funds must be used to pay tuition at religious schools if the state also makes taxpayer dollars available for private, non-sectarian schools. The case, which was decided Tuesday, is called Carson v. Macon. It deals with a law in Maine that provides tuition assistance vouchers, basically, for students who live in districts where no public secondary school is available. Which, by the way, what? There are districts where there's just, sorry, we forgot to build a high school. Our bad. The public taxpayer money is available to families so they can send their kids to private schools in the area, but not sectarian schools. Some families in Maine wanted to use this public money to send their kids to a religious school, specifically Bangor Christian Schools and Temple Academy. Both schools candidly admit that they discriminate against homosexuals, individuals who are transgender, and non-Christians. They're just proud of it. The state and lower federal courts said no. The families could not get money to send their kids to these schools. That's because using public money to pay for tuition at a religious school is, or should be, a point-and-click violation of the First Amendment's prohibition on the establishment of religion. In a secular country, the state should play no role in funding religious education. For that matter, all religious institutions that are tax-exempt are also a violation of the First Amendment. Has always been. One of the biggest scams in American history is a tax-exempt church. You're telling me that I can spend my whole life creating a business around helping poor and homeless people gain housing and I have to pay taxes, but a church can just babble about a stupid fucking fan fiction, a book that they just made up, and they don't have to pay taxes? What? That's not a society. That's a theocracy, which of course are not compatible. But the Supreme Court, by a vote of 6-3, reversed the lower courts and ordered the state to pay tuition to these religious institutions. Writing for the majority, Chief Justice John Roberts ruled that Maine's prohibition on funding religious education actually discriminated against those religious institutions. And thus violated the Free Exercise Clause of the First Amendment. Roberts argues that since Maine makes tuition assistance available for non-sectarian private schools, which it does, it must make the same money available for religious instruction. There is, of course, an argument to be made that Maine shouldn't make public money available for private schools at all. I would rather have, you know, public schools. Hey, just an option. Throwing that out there. There's an argument to be made that Maine should get its act together and provide free middle schools and high schools to students in all of its districts. But the argument that money is made available to help families pay for private schools must be made available to help them pay for parochial schools has as much merit as saying that every library that carried a copy on the origin of species must also carry a picture book of Jesus riding a velociraptor, or else we're discriminating against Chris Pratt. Does he actually think that? I've read a couple things about Chris Pratt that make me don't like him, but I gotta look into that one. I know he said a bunch of stupid shit on religion and homosexuals, but but yes, that's a joke. But again, there's multiple layers of idiocy here, right? So there's just areas where there's no high school. Like, what? I'm just trying to figure this out. Okay. There's no high school or middle school in parts of Maine. Isn't that a problem? Like, to me, that's like, oh, the house burned down. Where are we going to live? That's a huge fucking problem. That's a huge fucking problem. You can read the rest of this later if you'd like. There's a bunch of new stuff coming out about the Supreme Court about there's a gun law ruling. I haven't read it yet. But the Supreme Court, again, I covered this, I think last week, that the Supreme Court basically said Miranda rights, fuck it. You don't need to know about your right to remain silent. Fuck that shit. Cops don't need to tell you anything. The Supreme Court also recently ruled that Border Patrol agents with any state, anywhere within 100 miles of the ocean or Mexico or Canada, a Border Patrol agent can just fuck your shit up and it's legal. Whoops, isn't that crazy? Our country is off the rails. Do you remember when fucking Democrats were running for the president in 2019 and 2020 and these motherfuckers were like, oh yeah, we should pack the court. Then Amy Coney Barrett gets nominated and confirmed, so the court's even more unbalanced, and Democrats just stop talking about it. Oh shit, pack the court? Pfft. Amy Coney Barrett's a woman. It's all good. What? Democrats don't give a shit. They don't care. They don't give a fuck. At all. They'll pretend to give a fuck every once in a while, but they don't give a fuck. And Republicans, they do give a fuck about destroying this country. That's what they give a fuck about. Like, the idea of religious schools in general, in my opinion, that is grooming. You're telling me you're going to send a child to a school that teaches them about fairies, invisible men, and angels. What? That's grooming. That's grooming children into being dumb. That's grooming children into having a ceiling of an IQ of 40. You're telling me you want to instill and indoctrinate your child into thinking that there's some wizard in the sky who watches them masturbate, and if they jerk off too much, they'll go to hell? What? That's fucked up. That's insane. That's crazy. That's crazy. That's crazy shit. So the existence of religious schools in general, Jesus fucking Christ. The fact that there's no high school and middle school in certain districts in Maine, Jesus fucking Christ. And the, again, tax-exempt status for churches, Jesus fucking Christ. This country's off the rails. But, or maybe it's not. Maybe it is on the rails, and this is exactly what this country has been building toward the whole time.